Imagine building an artificial brain so incredibly huge that it literally forgets how to think. It sounds crazy, right? But that was the exact wall the AI community hit back in 2015, until one specific paper shattered that ceiling and laid the foundation for the entire AI revolution we're living through today. Welcome to the Explainer. If you are a grad student who's just starting to wade into the often dense, kind of intimidating world of machine learning research papers, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're decoding an absolute modern classic. It's the 2015 paper by Kai-Man He and his team at Microsoft Research, titled Deep Residual Learning for Image Recognition. And let me tell you, this isn't just some minor incremental update. This is the fundamental breakthrough that completely rewired how we build deep neural networks. To really understand the impact, let's start with a number that genuinely shocked the field back in 2015, 152. At the time, if you had a neural network with, say, 16 to 30 layers, the community considered that to be very deep. So pushing an architecture all the way to 152 layers, that didn't just break previous records, it utterly obliterated them. But here's the catch. Getting a model to 152 layers wasn't just a matter of throwing way more computer power at the problem. And that brings us to the central paradox of this entire paper. The researchers posed a seemingly straightforward question. Is learning a better network as easy as just stacking more layers on top of it? Intuitively, you'd think, well, yeah, of course. A deeper network is essentially a larger, more complex brain, so it should be able to learn richer, more complex features. But early deep learning attempts proved that was absolutely not the case. Before this paper came along, the deep learning community was repeatedly slamming into a massive, frustrating brick wall. Now, a quick pro tip as you learn to read these dense research papers. Always hunt for the anomaly. Look for the graph that makes you go, wait, that shouldn't happen. If you look at the original charts from the paper showing error rates on a dataset called Insightforge, you'll see exactly what I mean. There's a yellow line representing a 20-layer network and a red line for a deeper 56-layer network. You can clearly see that both the training error and the test error are actually higher for the deeper 56-layer model. And unexpectedly, this is not your standard overfitting. We know this because if it were overfitting, the deeper model's training error would still be super low. Instead, simply adding more layers literally made the network's ability to train worse. The researchers dubbed this the degradation problem. So, what's actually going on under the hood to cause this degradation? Think of it like a giant game of telephone. You know, you whisper a message to the person next to you, they pass it on, and after 56 people, the message is completely garbled gibberish. In a standard deep neural network, your input data has to pass cleanly through every single layer. But as that signal goes down the line, through layer after layer of complex mathematical transformations, getting multiplied by weights, squeezed through activation functions, the original signal just degrades. The math solvers simply couldn't approximate the proper mappings, and the network essentially lost the plot of the original data. So how did Kai-Man He and his team fix this massive headache? They introduced a remarkably elegant solution called residual learning. Let's actually ditch the heavy math jargon for a second. Imagine you're driving on a heavily congested highway. Every single toll booth, which represents a layer in our neural network, forces you to slow down, changes your speed, and kind of alters your path. Residual learning essentially builds a bypass lane right onto this highway. It gives the data a safe shortcut to skip the traffic and jump ahead without getting mangled by all those toll booths. This bypass concept translates directly into the paper's most famous diagram, known as the residual building block. Instead of just crossing their fingers and hoping a massive stack of layers will magically learn the exact underlying mapping from scratch, which the degradation problem proved is basically impossible, they explicitly reformulated the task. They let the layers fit a residual mapping, which we'll call f of x, and then they simply add the original input x straight back into the output. The entire operation is brilliantly recast into f of x plus x. What's absolutely crucial here is how simple and resource-friendly this three-step recipe really is. Step 1, you have your initial input data, x. Step 2, that data goes through a few weight layers and transformations. That is your f of x. And step 3 is the magic, the identity shortcut. That curving arrow in the diagram takes the exact same original data x, completely unmodified, and adds it directly to the output. And as the paper points out, these identity shortcut connections are entirely parameter-free. They don't add any extra computational complexity or new weights to learn. It is literally a free upgrade to the network's architecture. To really appreciate the physical scale of this change, just compare the architectures side by side. You've got VGG19, which was a state-of-the-art flat architecture at the time, sitting at 19 layers. And then right next to it, towering above it, is their new 34-layer residual network, or ResNet. Notice all those recurring shortcut arrows curving their way down the entire length of the ResNet structure. Those bypass lanes are exactly what allow the critical data signals to survive the long, perilous journey from the very top of the network all the way down to the bottom. Now, this is where it turns into a true David versus Goliath triumph. The authors didn't just stop at 34 layers, right? They scaled this beast all the way up to 152 layers. Now, you would probably assume a 152-layer model would require a supercomputer the size of a minivan to run, but no. By using highly clever bottleneck designs, which essentially compress the dimensions of the data before processing it and then expand it back out again, they kept the complexity incredibly low. Their 152-layer ResNet, despite being roughly 8 times deeper than the older VGG networks, actually had lower computational complexity. We are talking 11.3 billion flops compared to VGG19's 19.6 billion. It's wild. So what did this highly efficient, massively deep new architecture actually achieve out in the wild? Well, 3.57%. That was their jaw-dropping top 5 error rate on the massive ImageNet test set. When they submitted an ensemble of these extremely deep residual networks to the 2015 ImageNet competition, they didn't just do well, they completely crushed the competition and easily took first place. To see just how dominant this leap forward was, let's look at the competitors. Before ResNet showed up, the leading ensemble models were hovering around a 6.6 to 6.8% error rate. Then ResNet just drops in at 3.57%. They practically cut the error rate in half in a single year. And they didn't even stop there. They also swept first place in ImageNet detection, ImageNet localization, COCO detection, and COCO segmentation. It was absolute, undeniable proof that the degradation problem had been solved. Now, as grad students right now, you might be wondering, okay, cool history lesson, but why does a paper from 2015 matter to the systems I'm building today? Well, it's because ResNet is quite literally the backbone of modern AI. The core concept of the residual connection, that super simple identity shortcut bypass, is the exact mechanism that enables the massive architectures we use right now. If you've tinkered with a large language model or a transformer-based system like ChatGPT, you are relying on this exact principle. Without the ability to safely stack hundreds of layers, without the training signal degrading, those massive models simply wouldn't be able to learn. And this brings us to a really profound takeaway, especially for those of you learning how to extract actual value from scientific literature. The authors of this paper didn't solve the degradation problem by inventing some radically impenetrable new mathematical solver. Instead, they realized that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs aren't about adding more brute force complexity. It's about changing the framing of the problem entirely. They hypothesized that pushing a residual to 0 is vastly easier than trying to fit an identity mapping from scratch through multiple complex layers. They worked smarter, not just harder. And honestly, that is the mark of truly foundational, transformative research. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with an empowering question to chew on as you head back to your own labs and dive into your own data sets. Think about the stubborn, frustrating, degrading problems in your specific field. How will you apply your own shortcuts to reframe your future research? Because sometimes the absolute fastest path to a breakthrough is simply realizing your data just needs a clear bypass. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep analyzing those papers closely, and I will see you next time.